This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
This is the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership. It is Thursday, January 25th, and it is 6:03 p.m. Welcome, everyone. I think first thing on the agenda is to approve the December meeting notes, which I literally just sent to you like a hot second ago. So I don't know if people had a chance to review them. We could table them to the next meeting, or you all could take a second and quickly review them now.
Do you have to you on that email?
Yeah, I saw them.
Okay.
I don't think I get a vote though or anything, right?
No.
Not yet. I also don't get a vote.
Just pulling that.
Oh, yeah. I'm not on the committee. I don't know. What do you prefer, Jana?
But I still get a vote.
Well, I don't care either. We can look, you could all can take a couple minutes and look at them now, or we can wait until next month.
I am scrolling through and they look okay to me.
Yeah, I had a chance to review them, and I guess I will move to approve the minutes, and then whenever the first person who wants to second it is done reviewing them can second them.
I will second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the December meeting minutes?
Aye.
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 Great, thank you. All right. Second item is Jamie's item, which is a letter of support for a CDBG application for town lodging house. Jamie, do you want to explain what that is?
I'd love to, thank you. The Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. We are applying for federal funds through the pass-through program to through the state. The Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities manages the grant program. We are applying to them to rehabilitate the town lodging house at 75 Oliver Street. As everyone's in this group has been here for the last 2+ years, knows the lodging house is it was the last functioning town core farm in the nation. It was built in 1890 to support the poor folks of Easthampton. They would work they'd work in the fields for their food and lodging, or their keep. That practice was discontinued in the 60s. It switched to more of a residential only program. The city has, starting around 2000, we started to lease the property to the Southern Middlesex Opportunity Council. They dealt with all of the client intake and qualifications and had a manager on site for the residents. They, in 2021 or 2021,
One of those.
they terminated their lease with the city because of the poor condition of the lodging house. The city did not keep up with its obligation to maintain the house in proper working condition, did not provide safe, clean, hygienic place to live. So we are applying to this, essentially rehab the existing structure, transforming it from a 23-unit single room occupancy to probably about 12 units of the studio apartments. No, thank you, Jackie. Appreciate some time. It's been a long day. At the same time that we are moving this project forward, if we're awarded the grant, we're also planning to work with Valley Community Development Corporation, who will be working on a project to build a new building in the back of the town lodging house that would be 15 to 18 units of affordable housing for, and be 1, 2, and 3 unit apartments.
How many? 15 to 18?
15 to 18. So in total, we're looking at about 30 units. So it would be a net increase of about 7 units from the existing. And we are looking to, the application to the block grant program is due in March. So we're looking for the Housing Partnership to write a letter of support for the piece that we're doing to the grant program, which is just the rehab of the existing building. And obviously because the other component of it is not really related to this grant application, although it is part of it. Cool.
So I'm sorry, so the grant funds are just for rehabbing the existing structure
It's
and not for the
design.
additional
It's for the design
design development
development
of the
plans.
of the existing,
Yeah.
but not the additional.
Right. So we did a study in 2019 of the capital needs of this building. And it came up with about $1.5 million of, let's call it urgent capital needs that needed to happen. And that's just to sort of keep the building functioning at its current level without making it improvements. So single room occupancy is essentially a boarding house. It's just, we get a room in the house, there's shared bathrooms, shared kitchen, and it's not a great way to live. If you want to bring groceries home and you put them in the fridge and you have a couple roommates and they eat all your groceries, imagine having 22 roommates. So the idea is that we would essentially, by making small studio apartments, kitchenettes, bathrooms, it gives residents more autonomy and makes the property a more attractive place to live in. And long-term, Valley Community Development Corporation would manage both units. And their plan, they would like to take over the building and the property. The city would retain the agricultural fields that are surrounding it.
So who did you say the corporation?
Valley Community Development.
So that was my question, Jamie, is like, how does this, because I thought originally Valley was interested in the original building plus an additional building. So is that still the plan? But this is like helping them get further down the road? Yes.
They have different funding sources. So the block grant program, due to like a 1990s era law, cannot be used to create new affordable housing units. But it can rehab existing units.
That's why we wanted to do all this.
Right. So we can't use it for the new building. Otherwise, we would be applying for design development funds for both the new building and the existing building. Valley CDC is going to plan to take out a loan from CDAC, which is like the Community Economic Development and Assistance Corporation. And they would take out a pre-development loan to advance those funds, or to advance the designs for the new building. Ben, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that seems like a great project. And my only question, and this is kind of a little bit ways down the road, I'm sure, but if the building is currently occupied, it sounds like, so during not okay.
When the Southern Middlesex Opportunity Council terminated their lease, they relocated all of their clients to other facilities within Easthampton if they were able, and then within the region if they were not, and all relocations were done with the client's sort of consent, and that like they had to move, but they got choices as to where they finally ended up.
Okay, gotcha. I may have missed that, but yeah, my only question was what happens to the current residents during the construction, but that's not going to be a problem, so that's great.
Yes. So it's currently vacant, boarded up, and hopefully it will survive the 3 to 5 years that we go through all the pre-development work to rehab it.
So how much is the grant that you're
Yeah.
applying for this? Just for design and development?
Just for the design development, and it's just through, we only have, for the grant timeline, we only have 18 months. So
Right.
we're looking at just bringing the project to 75% completion. At that point, the drawings need to go, there's a historic preservation restriction on the property. And so it's also listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So the designs need approval by the National Park Service and the Mass Historic Commission to make sure that what we're doing doesn't have any adverse impacts to the building or to the history of the building. So that's why we're stopping at 75%. So that way, if there are changes that need to be made for their review, we can take the time to like have those discussions and then come back and finish up the documents. It's unclear how long those timelines will take if they'll follow their own timelines. So we're building in this sort of, we don't want to put in too much and then find out that the grant has to end before, or we have to pay back funds or something like that.
Can't you usually extend them though?
We can, but we still have to, what we propose has to be able to be completed in 18
Substantially
months.
completed.
Yeah, and then we have time we can extend if we didn't actually meet that deadline, but we can't propose a 24-month project.
Right. I want to just come back because I want to make sure I'm understanding it, especially because I'm doing minutes. So you're applying for, do you know how much, what's the number?
We don't have that quite yet.
Okay.
It's probably in the like $350,000 to $400,000.
Okay.
The grant, the maximum grant that we can ask for is about $950,000. So
And when you say design and development, it's not actually doing any work on the building.
it's not design and development, it's design development.
Gotcha.
The
Thank
development
you.
of the design.
Yeah, that's
Development
what I
of- yeah,
thought.
yeah.
You were.
It took me 2 iterations myself.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So that means like an architect, like contractor, like,
Yeah, so we'll be working with, we'll put out a designer selection proposal to hire, to onboard an architect. We've currently been working with Kuhn Riddle Architects, but they've been helping us to date. We hope that they're interested in working with us going forward. But essentially they'll be taking the lead on making sure that it meets the energy performance standards, because it has to meet the all the city's the stretch code requirements, that it's energy efficient, that the units are the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities has a large list of requirements for housing to make sure that the affordable housing units are better than your typical market rate unit. So they're well versed in both the historic side of things, and they're the architects that are doing the town hall renovation. So we have a good relationship with them already.
So Jana, would you like me to make a motion to support this project? Because I can.
Sure, unless anyone has any other questions. If not, go right ahead, Jackie.
Okay, I will make that motion to support this grant. When do you need it by? March 15th is the deadline?
Yeah, so it'd be nice to get, if we can draft up a letter that can be passed around at the next meeting, then that would be, then at the next meeting, it'd be great to get it signed or at least approved and then from there. So.
How much land is included in this property?
It's about 56 acres in total, but the property that's just, that includes all the agricultural land. The developable portion of the land is 2.5 acres. The agricultural land is deed restricted permanently for agricultural purposes.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is just within this 2.5 acre site.
Okay. And so that second building, I'm looking at the site now. So the second building is going to be,
It'd be in the back.
In
You
back,
want to be
okay,
able to see
somewhere.
from where you're at, from where you're viewing it now, you
Yeah,
wouldn't be able to see it.
yeah.
The new building would be designed to look like one of the historic barns that had been on the site previously.
Mhm.
So,
And this will all, because it's on the historic register, all of this will remain substantially the same
there should be no change
to the
visual,
external
there should be no like
visual,
visual change to the exterior.
except paint.
Yeah, so,
Except not falling into the
yeah.
ground.
If an elevator needs to be added, it'll be put onto the back of the building.
Mhm.
But there's questions about whether or not we need an elevator in this building. The first floor is accessible.
Mhm.
And the new building would have to have an elevator, and it's not necessarily feasible to maintain 2 elevators on the same property. So Valley is recommending that we'd only go for an elevator in one of the buildings. But that's way detailed.
Yeah, no,
Feel free to-
interesting, yeah.
I was just in that building a couple weeks ago, and it needs a lot of work. So this is, I think, great that that this is on the table to be able to help give that building a little bit of love.
Brave to have gone in, why is it falling down?
No, it's not falling down. It's a little bit spooky because it's boarded up, and if you've ever been on the inside of a boarded up building, it's like permanent midnight.
So I made a motion in support of writing a letter. Does anyone want a second? Second. Thank you, Shira. You're welcome, Jack.
All right, I will work with Jamie to draft the letter, and then we can have it at the February meeting.
Robert's rules, my friend.
Oh, sorry, I don't know why that's the second time I've done that. All in favor of supporting the city's CDBG application for town lodging house?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
All right.
Sorry.
No problem.
If by now I would know how to do this. Okay,
Thank you.
It's okay. It's harder to do it when we're all over the place.
that's true.
It's hard to manage a meeting from on Zoom.
All right. So next item on the agenda is our continued discussion of potential zoning amendments and changes. And I know that Ben has to hop off at 7 for a little bit. So I'm wondering if Ben wants, I don't think so. I will preface this by saying, I know Ben and Kayam have both sent something to Jamie. I do not think we're going to get to everything tonight, and I think that's fine. But I'm going to propose that we start with Ben and Kayam because they already sent their things to Jamie, and I know Ben has to hop off at 7. That seems like a reasonable place to start.
So there are 2 ways to do this. And if you're on your computer, do you want to share what you have? That's fine, or I can share it for you, and you can tell me how to navigate.
Sure. Yeah.
A co-host.
Let's see. If I actually don't think I can share, which is fine. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and maybe share the PDF.
So you're a host now. So
Okay.
Can I try that again?
Why don't you go for it? I'm not super familiar with Google Meet. I'm already confused. So.
It's complicated in its simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
So true. Okay, so everyone at home can see this?
Oh, very cool. Yes, I can see
Yes.
that.
Is that in the zoning regulations?
No, this is Ben's proposals.
So yeah, this is the zoning map, and then I overlaid some black lines on it. And so, yeah, kind of what I wanted to show, at least it was kind of like just a first step in this process, was to show where duplexes are allowed more or less by right, and where they are either completely prohibited or need site plan approval. And so the neighborhoods that are within the black lines, so those are like the R15, the R10, the R5, kind of the more denser neighborhoods in Easthampton. Those are the areas where duplexes are allowed by right. And what that means is, you still have to obviously meet the dimensional requirements in terms of lot width and setbacks and all that. But if you have the space to do it, you can build a duplex. And so I guess like another iteration of this map, I would be curious to know like what percentage of the land in Easthampton that is. It might be like, you know, a third, it might somewhere around there, or a quarter, I don't know. But it was just meant to show kind of roughly, you know, where we, and I guess the flip side of this is the areas that are not highlighted are basically where you can only build single family homes, except for the downtown where, you know, it's obviously more commercial. And so, and there's also industrial areas too. So yeah, I thought this was just a good place to start, just to highlight kind of geographically what we're looking at. And so the proposal, I guess, is pretty simple. Yeah, if you can go down. Yeah, so this is the current zoning. I just, you know, did a screen grab and showed the existing. And yeah, but then if you go down, so the proposal would basically for all the residential districts, R5 through R80, would be to add those as Ps, so use permitted by right, if you look at the table at the top. And yeah, and then because I didn't want to get into the downtown business or highway business, those areas, those are, you know, meant to be commercial at this point. And so then if you go down, I kind of forget what I did. Oh yeah, here you go. So I looked at the dimensional regulations, and I think Kayam, you're looking at these as well. So yeah. So yeah, knowing that Kayam was looking at these as well, all I really proposed was that the regulations for duplexes should just match what they are for single family homes. You know, because I think if you stop there for a second, Jamie, I think for the most part, you needed like an extra 2,500 square feet of area for a duplex, and then the setbacks, the side and rear setbacks, were generally a few, like 5 to 10 feet more. So my proposal is just to keep them the same as a single family home. And then lastly, I just had a little bit of a blurb about accessory dwelling units, because I think it's the last page. Just because I was generally curious, because I was like, oh, like you can already build an accessory dwelling unit for, I think, anywhere in the city if you have a single family home. And so like technically that's a way of building a duplex or having 2 units on a property, which is great. But I just wanted to bring people's attention to the fact that the ADU cannot exceed 900 square feet. So it's great that you can build them anywhere in the city, and it's a wonderful thing that we allow. But you know, it's not 900 square feet would be a pretty small, or modest size small unit. So a duplex obviously would have, maybe 2 like 1,200 square feet units or something like that. And the other thing too is if you look at the top underline, with an ADU, I think the owner of the property has to live in either the main house or the ADU as well. So that's one way that a duplex is different than a ADU. Yeah, so that was kind of the extent of what I looked at. I will also say too, I looked a little bit into the triplex idea. That was the other part of my project, if you will. And talking to Jamie, it sounds like for new triplexes, the state building code requires sprinklers, and it just seemed like I also looked at a few other cities in the area, cities and towns in the areas, and there's not, most towns don't have a separate category for triplexes. They're just incorporated into multifamily homes. So at this point, I didn't want to look too much further into that unless folks think we should, but that was kind of my the extent of what I looked at for triplexes. But so yeah, and then I did. So I didn't really have that many zoning changes, just because it was just changing a few letters here and there. But those letters have a lot of meaning. So I I see someone has their hand raised. Connie has their hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. This is great. So I just had a question. I was just thinking about my neighbors a few years ago. They had a cape, a single story cape, and then they turned it into a 2-story home. So could a duplex also be, instead of growing kind of out, can it also be growing up? Can that could be also considered a duplex, and encouraging if they wanted to be able to do that?
Yeah, it can. Under building code, I think it's more complicated because you need full fire separation between the units. So if you have an existing building and you can build essentially outside the building envelope, that fire separation is really easy to put in from the basement all the way to the roof. But if you're having if you're adding a second floor, I think getting that fire separation gets a little bit more complicated. It's a design problem, and also it's a space problem too, which would be addressed by Ben's proposal to relax the setback requirements, because a duplex takes up a little bit more space. You don't have width, and you have to go in.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I was just going to add too, like, in my experience, like when my wife and I were looking for houses, we actually started our search for like the first year. We were looking at duplexes only, thinking, they're a great way to, obviously they're more expensive and they were very competitive. That's why we didn't end up buying one. But they do allow folks to obviously offset a lot of their mortgage payment by, renting out the second unit. And it's it's one strategy for real estate. Obviously, we're happy with our single family home though. But I was just going to say, I feel like I got to know the character of Easthampton's neighborhoods pretty well. And for the most part, I mean, a lot of the duplexes do generally blend in with the single family homes, and especially in the downtown neighborhoods. Really, we drove around a lot, and the only way you could tell is just looking for 2 mailboxes or for 2, electric meters, if just to show that there's 2 separate units. But I think a lot of the concern about allowing duplexes everywhere, and this kind of gets into what Jan is looking at, is the neighborhood character issue, and thinking about, our duplexes are monstrosities, or they don't look like the single family homes. But I think for the most part, a lot of, especially the bigger homes in the outlying neighborhoods in Easthampton, you wouldn't really know if there were 1 or 2 or 3 units in them, except for how many cars there are or something like that. But otherwise, so I think that's just one thing we can expect as some pushback maybe, but
I think I'm sorry, Ben, do you want to?
Yeah, no, I'm all set. Yep.
I was just going to say, I think the other thing that's going to come up as an issue is water usage and tying into water and sewer. We might get pushback from that stuff.
I think generally speaking, like the difference between a duplex and a single family isn't going to break the water or sewer in any neighborhood.
Okay. I'm just thinking of something from somebody in the plans.
But
talking about
definitely when we were still on septic, that would be a big expense going to upgrade a septic system from a single family to a 2-family. There are probably some sections of the city where the water pressure is a little bit low, but primarily in conversation with DPW, there's most of the time the problem isn't in the street. The problem is in the pipes that are connecting from the street to the house, where they're old water lines that are undersized for a single family house of today's water usage. They were built 100 years ago, and so the homeowner might have to upgrade their water services to the street.
Well, that helps.
Shannon, that's right.
I think it's good for us to think about what we think the concerns are going to be, so that we do have some like data or information that we can present back, because I think that could come up, Jackie, but like, I'm just thinking of like my neighbor's house, and I live adjacent to the Plains, that has a 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom home. And like, likely a duplex would likely not have 5 bathrooms. So I feel like what we'd end up with is like a duplex that's similar size to the largest homes we're building in Easthampton. And if no one's complaining about 4 or 6 bedroom homes in Easthampton with multiple bathrooms, I think we would probably just like want to have some data with us about like how like we already built single family homes that have that many bathrooms and bedrooms. And so this really wouldn't be the case, because probably I think, duplexes would be right, 2 1,200 square foot units, or maybe 2 1,500 square foot units, but we're still building 3,000 square foot homes in Easthampton or close to it. So that are single family. So I think we just have to like point that out in case that does come up. I'll just point out that the person who lives in the 5-bedroom bathroom house does not have enough people to use 5 bathrooms. So it fascinates me that it was built that way. But I think it's good for us as we're having these conversations to think about like what are we going to hear back so that we can have some responses. Go ahead, Lindsay.
The things I hear most about 2 families is not really about the pressure on water, sewer, or anything like that. It's more about people's bias against renters, against too many cars, against dumpsters, things that make it look like not what they want their name. That's I mean, when I'm shopping with people as a realtor who when they're looking around and not wanting to be around too many 2 families, that's the kind of things that I'm hearing. So I think it's one of those types of things biased towards renters or more transitional residents.
But isn't a counter to that if we can develop 2 families in more residential areas, then they won't be so clustered in the few areas where they are allowed? Like on Everett Street.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I agree with that, but the people that are going to be giving you feedback don't live on Everett Street, so they want to keep it open on the street. But yeah, I agree with you. But also, if you think about duplexes,
to clarify,
but people, if you think about like the codex, like the 2-unit condos, people don't have the same issues with those usually, and it's the same thing. It's just that they're owned. So when you start to hear, like if you drive down Nipfer, there's a codex there, and there's one on Edward in the New City area. So those are homes built as just 2 houses as well. So I think it's really the bias towards renters.
Mm-hmm. I do think, though, I'm trying to remember, Kayam, when we did the forum with the city council candidates, I'm pretty sure someone brought up this issue of in the Plains not wanting to do something that would do damage to the aquifer. Like, does that sound familiar to you? Didn't somebody bring that up during
Yeah, that was Tamara actually in her opening statement. I think she was talking about the fact that specifically the Plains is unique in that we're sort of sitting on that aquifer drift area, and that she supports, I guess, infill zoning, like more ADU stuff, and I guess the multifamily conversion kind of stuff that we're talking about, but not larger multifamily developments.
Okay. I'm just thinking if someone, she's pretty progressive, so someone's going to start talking about this. That's all.
Yeah, and I do know we haven't. There is an aquifer protection like overlay zoning district. I will say I didn't get too much into that, but maybe Jamie knows more about what is and is not allowed there.
The aquifer protection overlay is interesting because it there's a limitation on impervious surface. Excuse me. There's a limitation on impervious surface coverage as well as lot size coverage. And so essentially the rationale for making the large lot sizes in the aquifer district was to keep it wooded and, able to keep the rainwater to infiltrate into the ground and into the aquifer. But paradoxically, when you carve up a large area into large lots, people like to have like a 1 acre backyard that they mow and keep green with fertilizers and pesticides and things like this. And so it doesn't actually work. Like single family zoning doesn't, or single family lots don't actually protect the like woodland areas in the way that maybe the hope was when the aquifer district was created. So I could see that there'll be pushback to allowing infill development in the aquifer on the basis of trying to protect in the R40, in the basis of trying to protect the aquifer. But I think the sort of damage is done. The carving up the R40 into single family lots has by and large cut down many of the trees and like reduced the increased the amount of impervious surfaces, and people have like monoculture lawns and things like this. So I don't know what the like counter is to that, because
that sounds like that is the counter. Like we've already done it.
Yeah, but more people will have more of an impact. More cars will have more engine oil that runs off into the storm drains, or
I think the reality is that we don't have that much land left at Easthampton anyway. So like making it easier to build anything is in our best interest. I mean, like I live in one of those 1 acre lots with that pretty large house in the plains on the aquifer. But it's done, right? Like damage is done. Like all of Pomeroy Street that used to be wooded is now mostly, the side that was wooded is all mostly new homes. And there's 2 more lots that I noticed are staked. So I think what we need to point out is that, like, right to Jamie's point, like it didn't really work to protect the aquifer that way. And we don't really have that much land left anyway. There's not that much land left in the plains or in the aquifer to actually keep building and building and building. But the more flexibility we have to build a duplex instead of a single family, the better, the more progress we make in putting in new units.
And I guess I just put that up there as like a pragmatic point of like, I think it's great to put it in there that duplex should be allowed by right everywhere, and that should definitely be the proposal, in my opinion, the Housing Partnership submits. But knowing that by the time it goes through the planning board and the city council, things can be changed and amended, but it never hurts to ask.
And also, there's not a lot of difference between having accessory dwelling unit, which you can now have a right, or having a second unit on the house. I mean,
right, and the ADU,
you're basically increasing the land usage.
Right, the ADU ordinance, as Ben had pointed out, is limited to 900 square foot apartments, whereas there's no limit to the size of the duplex except as limited by the lot coverage requirements of the zone, the building lot coverage requirements. So you could theoretically have a very large duplex, and you can also have an ADU on a 2-family property.
Right.
So you could get 3 units.
And avoid the sprinkler issue?
If they're separate buildings. But if they're in the same building, so you could have a duplex and a detached ADU, but if you had a duplex and an attached ADU, you need to sprinkler.
Okay.
Also, I'm thinking from an ecological standpoint, what is more impactful? More people in general, or more people, like, is it better to have more people and less square footage, I guess, if that makes sense, versus like more people living in larger homes on larger lots? versus just building denser in the first place, and preserving the open space. So that's just sort of my thinking on that in terms of like protecting our aquifer. I think it makes sense for, instead of continuing to, build large homes on giant lots, we, convert what we have to multifamilies, or, make it easier to build denser in neighborhoods that we already have.
Yeah, I agree.
Like to agree. I just always like to think about what's the pushback's going to be.
Yeah, I was just going to add as like a slight anecdote, because while I was thinking about this proposal, a house near me on Lovefield Street that's been vacant and decrepit for who knows how long, seemingly a decade or more. All of a sudden there's a bulldozer outside of it and it got taken down, and now there's a foundation for a new house there. And I was looking at my map and I was like, oh, it's a single family only district that the house is in there. So I was thinking, that's an example of, that's a perfectly suitable place for a duplex. But it didn't look like the owner would have had the option to do that there.
I know all about that property.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Sorry if I offended you by calling it decrepit.
No, not at all. It actually wasn't abandoned.
Okay.
There was somebody living in it. It was a hoarder situation.
Oh, okay.
She just moved out within the past year, and the house was not inhabitable because of the hoarding. And it's also significant wetlands, and it's zoned industrial. And the only part of that lot that's buildable is where that existing foundation is.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
So that's the scoop with that one.
Okay.
Interesting.
Good.
It's actually zoned, like you just said, it's zoned industrial.
Oh,
Yeah.
Which
interesting.
does not allow.
But the house
housing.
was there first.
Right. And so it's a pre-existing
All right.
non-conforming.
So that's it. Yes. Slightly different situation. But
Lovefield Street, just past all of the like industrial stuff. It was a little white house.
Yeah. And there's something else there's something else there? There's a sign there now? Is that the location?
I don't know if there's a sign. I haven't been by in a while, but the person who bought it is going to build basically a house on the existing foundation.
Right.
Because that's really the only thing that's buildable there because of the weirdness of that particular, there's a lot of wetlands.
Do you know what number that is?
I don't remember.
It's right across from
Ben's house.
Lovefield, where like Lovefield and O'Neill meet.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
right at
And the
that
white path
intersection.
is right there.
Yeah, okay.
so anyway, yeah, I guess that's a peculiar case, but I guess in general, like Jana said, there's not that many developable lots in Easthampton, but there are homes that could be refurbished or rebuilt, and it would be nice to give folks the option of building 2 units where there was 1, I guess, is the takeaway. But
Lindsay, I
Could-
think you looked at that house too.
Yeah, it's 65 left field. But anyway, I was thinking, I think this is something you were looking at, Kian, is the frontage requirements, because there could be more lots available to build on, if the frontage requirements weren't there.
All right, let's finish up. Ben, I think this is great. This is super helpful.
yeah, no, that's a good segue into what other folks were looking at too, because these are all very interconnected.
Do we want to vote? Like, do we all like this? Everybody like this idea? Do we want to like vote to like move forward, like put this in the like done category? Or do you want to hold it until we talk about all the other stuff?
I say we go forward with it as it is. Put it in the done category.
And I looked at what Chaim had proposed, and there's a lot of overlap. And specifically when you get into the dimensional requirements, and there's some discussion between Ben and Chaim that should happen, as well as with the rest of the partnership. But, Chaim proposed one set of reductions in lot areas, and Ben proposed a different set of reductions. So,
Okay, then why don't we move to Chaim's date presentation piece, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be close.
Yeah,
as
I don't
well.
think it's nice of a presentation, but I can talk to the highlighted red track changes.
Ben's an overachiever. No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
Do you want me to present for you, or do you want to present? I just made a co-host.
Yeah, I think because of some weird security settings, it won't let me unless I restart my computer. So if you could do that.
Okay.
Well, if you already combined them.
Okay, I will. I have a combined version and a. It's very organized. But it happens.
So also, I'll just say, I was sort of pulling a lot of the changes that I was making from the American Planning Association's publications, the 2009 Essential Smart Growth Fixes for Urban and Suburban Zoning Codes, the EPA's 2017 publication, Smart Growth for Climate Adaptation and Resilience, the American Planning Association's 22 Equity and Zoning Policy Guide, and then the Housing Policy Guide from APA that from 2019. So I sort of like put in some comments in line, sort of quoting that. And I figured like when we write our memo or our policy brief or whatever, we can put those in footnotes or whatever.
Where do you want me to start?
If you just want to start on table 5.1, because I saw that Ben was much more liberal with the just putting it permitted by right for R40 and R80, which I am totally for. I was just being a little bit more timid with the changes. I also looked at the conversions. So if you look at line 5 there, I said that, where I suggested that we should make those permitted by right in R5 and R10, and then extend the special permit to R40. Just because I think, like we've been talking about, it's not necessarily that our population is growing, that we need to build a ton of new housing, but our housing needs are changing and more people are living in single family households. So it makes sense to, convert our housing. And then if you want to go down to page, I guess the retail and service, I guess to just where my next comments are. So this was potentially allowing for mixed use in residential areas, like allowing for convenience markets by special permit. Just sort of what we were talking about in walkability, sort of gets to the conversation about climate resilience and having more opportunities for people to get what they need without getting in their car and driving somewhere and needing to park and all that. And then on the next page, I also put supermarkets as site or as special permit by planning board approval, which I also noted that in the neighborhood business district, they limit square footage to 10,000 square feet. And I figure in our proposal, we could set a stricter limit for residential areas to make them even smaller and fit with our neighborhood character. And yeah, what was the next thing? I think the next thing is the table, the area table. Also, if anyone wants to stop me to talk about something that I'm saying, feel free.
I just really like your thinking around the convenience stores and the grocery stores. I often go to Central America where my brother lives, and they have those little convenience stores like in every little street, and it's just the walkability, like you said, to walk everywhere and get things. And there's often little places, I live downtown, where I'm like, oh, it'd be so nice if I could walk there. And yeah, we can. So I love that.
Yeah. It's definitely a big change for me and my partner having moved to the Plains. It's been like we can't walk to anything. We can't walk to get like a bottle of water. And it's like, it would be nice to have something.
Why would you want to walk for a bottle of water, Kaya?
We have the best water in the country, haven't you heard?
That's true. Thanks to our amazing aquifer.
Walk for milk for the coffee in the morning.
Exactly. Well, that's happened. We don't have any coffee or any milk or anything, and then we all have to go all the way to Big Y or anyway. So yeah, I wasn't very specific with these changes. I wasn't very intentional. I just something that I read in some of the publications was that an important aspect of these changes that we should be thinking of is making them happen in a way that's not too drastic or won't create dramatic change in neighborhoods too quickly. So like, I tried not to make things less than half of what they were, I guess. But, you know, I don't necessarily feel strongly about any of them. If Ben had more aggressive reductions, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I think what Ben had proposed was to keep the single family the same, but the reductions were in duplex. And you're also proposing a reduction in the single family zoning. And I think it's an interesting concept, but where I've seen this is as things get easier, you know, when you change the permitting is when things start to happen. Before ADUs were allowed by right, they were allowed by special permit, and we permit 1 or 2 a year. I think we've done, I don't know how many we've done in the past couple of years, but it has been a lot more. Because now they're allowed by right. So making it easier to build single family and easier to build duplex, are we just incentivizing it a single family still? You know,
I mean, my thinking was the ability to make lots smaller potentially, or having smaller lots. But that was, again, I'm not super well versed on the rationale behind some of these ordinances.
they
Do
all
we have any data?
they all come into play in the 1971 ordinance. Prior to the 1971 ordinance, it was like agricultural land, business, and then like residential. And there were no lot sizes, or very few lot sizes. After 1971 is where we saw the ordinance come into effect that had these tables of uses and the table with the lot size and area requirements. I don't know much about the stated purposes of those, but we do know what the impact of that has been. So you could make the argument that we should get rid of all of the different residential districts and just have residential is 10,000, you need a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. That would obviously get a lot of pushback, because this is the way this city's been for at least 50 years.
Do we have any data, Jamie, about non-conforming lots? So like what the lots look like before 1971 that we all think of as we drive by every day and see the houses and they don't meet these setbacks? I feel like that's one thing we might, again, it's just like data to have when there's a pushback about reducing the area square feet, like how many lot sizes actually are on 8,000 square feet?
So we don't have data, and I don't think it's something that we could easily get for lots that have where they don't conform to the setback requirements. We do have good data through the assessors on the lots. We can do an analysis to figure out how many lots don't meet the zoning requirements. So like the lot size, so we can look at the R10 and see how many of the R10 lots are only 5,000 square feet or 10,000, 9,800 square feet or whatever. Anecdotally, there's a lot of non-conforming lots in the R10 because there was a period of time in which the R10 was also R5, and then it was switched to the R10. Similarly, there's a lot of non-conforming lots in the R40 because they were all zoned, most of them were either zoned R15 or R35 prior to the aquifer protection. When that created, it made just a lot of non-conforming lots. So there are quite a few non-conforming lots, but most of them are built because they were created before the zoning was changed. So they're considered pre-existing non-conforming, and generally speaking, the zoning board of appeals gets involved in any sort of reconstruction, demolition and reconstruction type activities.
So they would have to now become conforming, or would they be
No,
able
they
to?
would not have to become conforming.
They
but
just
like,
have to stay on the same footprint.
yeah, so it gets complicated. So you could, let's say you're in the R40 district, you have a house on a lot that's 20,000 square feet. And the duplex is allowed by right, but you want to expand your house, you want to build a new addition next to it.
Mm-hmm.
If the lot requirement's 40,000 square feet, you're going to have to go to the zoning board of appeals anyways to get a special permit to build a duplex, even though it's allowed by right. Mm-hmm. Because you're changing a non-conforming use to, it's a new use. Single family is a different use than duplex. So, so in some districts, even changing it by right, it may not actually have an impact in some districts, in some lots of being actually like easier.
Right, except that it might, then you have an argument that because it's allowed by right in so many other districts, that just because it was non-conforming to begin with, what's the adverse, and what's the argument against it?
It's just not how zoning works.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is.
No, I get that, but.
And we can also look at, part like the non-conforming, how non-conforming lots are used and reused and allowed to be permitted.
Right.
Or permitted for reuse. Like we can look at those, that section as well.
Right.
But I would recommend not doing that right now. I think it's that would serve as a big distraction. And just focusing on this right now, and then later, after this gets approved, then going to like, well, now let's see what happens with the non-conforming lots. Maybe we should make it a little bit easier there. So incrementally over many changes, as opposed to trying to do everything all at once and either bogging ourselves down for so long that we never get a proposal to city council, or making the proposal so large that city council kind of goes, this is like a rewrite of the zoning ordinance. We're not interested in it.
Yeah.
Lindsay?
Thank you.
There's, in terms of the frontage and also all other dimensions, there's a way to write it as a special dimensional exception. And I know Westfield has a zoning like that it's like, instead of coming up with a specific number, like right now it's 100-foot frontage, right? But that is not the average frontage of downtown homes, for example. It's much smaller. So they say that if you could get a special permit to lower your the frontage that you need, if it's at least like the average of 60% of the homes in that area. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's kind of odd to say 100 feet when you live downtown. You're like, nobody has 100 feet of frontage. But there are some people who have these double side lots, and there could be another home there. And it would still match the neighborhood, at least, average size. So you could do it that way where you don't fix a number and it stays, like the neighborhood. I can pass along that zoning ordinance from Westfield.
We looked into this in Easthampton a bunch of years back. And And I found that like, it's very hard to do this analysis in like a meaningful way. If you look at like most of, you do have a lot of this non-conforming structures, but we just picked a couple random streets to see what we'd end up with, and we found that if you're just looking on the either side of the proposed lot, one person has 100 foot of frontage, the other has 50 feet of frontage, then you're going to have 75 feet of frontage. Or if you're trying to like look at a larger distance, it gets complicated, and then we're asking building commissioners to essentially become zoning mathematicians and trying to figure out how this. Not to say that it can't work, but it didn't go forward the last time we looked at it.
So what does it make sense to do with kind of suggestions for the lot sizes? At this point?
I love the idea of trying to reduce all of the lot sizes.
Kayam, is there more for us to look at, or is this the bulk of it?
That's pretty much the bulk of it. I think I had, I changed the table 6 to the max building coverage percentage of the lots. But yeah, and after that, there's nothing else.
Okay. So how do we, what if folks think, I'm sorry, I have a situation at my house right now. Hold on one second.
I think Jana's dog is misbehaving.
This dog is always misbehaving, and she's very irritating. So I guess my question is, how do we want to proceed? Do we want to adopt Kayam's suggestions, which are slightly different than Ben's? Hold on, let me take my thing. Does anyone want a puppy? I mean, she's cute, but she's like a toddler where like right around now, or like an infant where like she's just like a maniac. Anyway, yeah, how do we want to proceed? What do we want to do?
My idea is to just go with the most aggressive version of any change, and then we can sort of build our package off of that. And then if we need to come down, then we can. But I figure might as well go with the boldest version of any idea. And
I like that because I feel like Ben's proposal is a little bit of a compromise. Like, okay, then we could just do duplex the same as single family, but start with like what we think we really want.
Oh, Jana.
She's having such a serious conversation, getting pawed in the face.
Imagine what this is like when it's a Zoom meeting for work and I'm like, hold on, I'm just gonna hit my dog. Yeah.
Yep.
So I have a version of this that I merged Ben and Kayam's suggestions.
Yes.
Edits into one. So I can send that out to everyone and people can take a look at it and then kind of reconvene on it. But I also think Kayam's suggestion to just go with the most aggressive version of it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so my question is Kayam's version always more aggressive than Ben's version? Mm-hmm. Or do we need to compare and choose the more aggressive?
Yeah, I didn't think critically about the actual dimensional regulations themselves. My only suggestion was that duplex and single family should be the same. So okay. if we wanted to adopt Kayam's suggestions for single family homes and then just match that, say that that and duplexes are the same, I guess that would kind of be the way to compromise the two, if that makes sense. So like for the R10, it would be like 8,000 square foot lot size for both single family homes and lot size.
And I did like
that would be the most aggressive, I think.
and I did like how you set the permitted by right in that first table of use for duplexes as well, not just a special permit.
Right. Yeah.
So use Kayam's lot sizes and Ben's permit by right.
Yeah, I think so.
We went through the types of businesses besides convenience stores and groceries. Did you add any other types of businesses for residential? Well,
I have a question too.
So by right, or sorry, home occupations are allowed by right in all residential zoning districts if they are small and don't have like non-residential visitors coming into the home. They're allowed by special permit if they have any non-resident employees or visitors coming to the site outside of like typical deliveries and things like that.
So like I could create the crafts, but not have Jackie come buy it from me. Like I couldn't set up a store in my house.
Right, correct. And the other piece is you're not really allowed to, it's not for retail, but like resale. So you can't be like, I'm going to import, I don't know, soaps and resell them. But if you were like, I'm going to raise goats and sell the soap, I could have a retail store that sells soap if you got the special permit to
have people come and
have the retail. Otherwise, you could be like, I have USPS comes by and all my packages go out with them. Or I have we'll see this with, people will often run like a cleaning business out of their home, so they keep their van that has all their cleaning supplies on their driveway and they have their home office, but they're actually going to other people's places to do their work. But other than what that, the only other thing I believe is an antique or gift shop that is allowed by special permit in all residential zoning.
It's random.
That's like the only option. Period.
I feel like number 15 would be good too, to allow 15, 10 and the supermarket and the convenience store.
Yeah, I'll also point out that in the neighborhood business district where we allowed many of these uses for a very long time, I don't think that there's a lot of businesses in the neighborhood business district. And I don't know if that's location, but it is one of our denser neighborhoods. And so I would love there to be more like opportunities for small retails throughout the city. So as kind of nicely put it, so like it has those benefits for climate resiliency and reducing minimum car trips and making each neighborhood just like a better adding amenities. I wonder, what the likelihood of like someone opening up a 10,000 square foot convenience store that doesn't pump gas, probably can't sell cigarettes, what they're selling and like how like this, and not to say that we should stop that from our dream and wish list, but.
So I'm going to propose, just so we, because it's 7:15, or almost 7:15, that we, Jamie, if you could circulate the combined document to the group, then maybe in February, we like look at it one more time together and sort of make it a decision or agreement. Does that sound like a good?
Mhm.
Okay.
Were there other pieces that were also other people had that they wanted that should also be added to this?
I just had a question about it. So if you reduce the lot size and you treat the single family the same as a duplex with the reduced lot size, does that still allow enough space if somebody wants to have an accessory unit?
I mean, it should. If like, we're talking, the smallest lots in Easthampton are 5,000 square foot lots. Most buildings are 2 stories and have a basement. So your typical home is 2,000 square feet at most. Is that right, Lindsay? 2,000 square feet is like a typical house lot, typical house square footage.
1,800.
1,800.
Yeah, I would say smaller in downtown, but
Yeah, it's 1,700, 18, even 2,000.
5 could get bigger. Yeah.
If that was happening on 2 floors, you know,
Yeah.
most of the lot is not actually being
900
used,
square
so-
feet on a floor.
Yeah. So there should be plenty of space. I think the biggest garages are honestly the hard thing to fit onto the lots. Especially in the R5 and the R10. They just, because most garages are about the size of a house nowadays.
To answer your question, Jamie, yes, we do have more changes, but I don't think we're going to get to them all tonight. So I think if we like kind of decide, like finalize these 2, and then we can move on to the other things on our list, at least then we'll like have, and maybe that means we need to revise some of these things, but I think the rest of the stuff on the list is not related to lot sizes and that kind of stuff. So I think if we can kind of finalize this piece, and then we can talk again next time about some of the other things that Shira and Jackie and Lindsay and I have been working on.
Would the intent be to submit this separately from those other pieces, or would you still want to wait till everything's all together?
I think we want to do it all together. Yeah. Because we originally thought that this would take us about 6 months of 2024. So I think if we, think we're going to get to someplace by writing the memo and submitting it in May or June, that I think we're still on track. Okay.
So I'll go ahead and share that document with everyone.
That'd be great.
Adding your changes.
I just have 2 quick items that I wanted to mention. Hold on one second. I'll let you go.
Be a good dog.
My husband's out of town. That's the other problem. And he's her person. And so when he's not here, she's very like out of sorts. Anyway, so the 3 things I wanted to mention on our February meeting, I'm going to be out of town. It's February break for school, and we are going to be I'll be in Florida. So I'm wondering if we could move that meeting date to maybe the 29th, which is the following Thursday.
That would work for me.
I may not be available on the 29th. It's my brother's birthday.
Or any other night that week. The week before our meeting, I'll be in Vegas at a work conference. So
Nice. I would prefer not to do the 29th because Easthampton Democrats may be doing a fundraiser that night that I would have to go to. That you could all come to as well.
I think Tim's doing the
Trivia.
trivia.
so like either the 27th or the 28th.
I like the Wednesday best. That's just me.
28th.
The 27th is the planning board meeting, so I have to be there for that. So.
All right. So am I hearing the 28th? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Great.
The last month I mentioned that the Council on Aging is working on an affordable housing forum. And they were looking at an April date, and it's been moved to May 13th. So if anybody saved the date for whatever the April date was that I gave you, it's been moved. And so I still don't have a lot of details, but once I do, I will forward it to everybody. But it is going to be during the day.
Can you say the date again, Jana?
May 13th.
May 13th. Thank you. And what is the event? It's something with the senior center about affordable housing. Okay. So the senior center. Which council was it?
Yeah, it's gonna be like a forum. And they invited some like state and local legislators, and they're gonna have a whole presentation. It sounds pretty interesting. They invited the coalition as well, so definitely, if as many of us want to make it as we can, we should.
All right, I'm sorry. Last thing is I have a call today with Carmen from the Northampton Housing Partnership. They are interested in doing some type of developer forum on the challenges of building affordable housing. Easthampton actually is doing a great job in building affordable housing. But some of you, maybe just Jackie, will remember that we've actually had a couple other times where we've had joint meetings with other housing partnerships with Northampton and Amherst. I think we've done it twice. And it's actually really interesting to hear what the other groups are working on. So, I said that I'm sure we'd be interested and to keep me updated. And that I always thought it was valuable to have any type of like regional housing partnership meeting or forum, because it's just kind of interesting to hear what people are doing. So I just wanted to give a heads up that I have no idea when that would happen, but they have a meeting on Monday, I think, that she was hoping to talk about it then.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So for Jana's sake, how about a motion? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Thank you, everybody. It is 7:20 and we are adjourned.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.